After going through this video, you will be able to apply do while, for, and for each loop in a PHP code. In the previous video, we discussed the while loop. In this video, we will start with the second type of loop, that is do while loop. To understand this loop, let us again come back to our previous code example. The do while loop is very similar to the while loop, except that here the condition is checked at the exit point instead of the entry point. This ensures that the code block inside the loop will run at least once, even if the condition fails for the very first time. If we look at the output of this code, you will be amazed to see that the output remains the same. That is, it prints the first 10 even numbers. Let's see how. Here, we have declared the variable value as 1. At this point, it will print the value 2, and after that it will increment the value of n by 1. At the end, here, it will check if the value of n is less than equal to 10, which evaluates to true. So it will again enter the loop and in a similar way will print the remaining even numbers. Just like in the case of while loop, the break and continue keywords work in an exact manner for all the loops, and this brings us to a small exercise which you have to do on your own. Download the given PHP code from below the video and use break and continue keywords one by one in the code and observe the output by changing the condition. Next, we have the for loop, and to understand this, let us use the same code example. Let us use the for loop in this code. So here, on the left side, we have the code in which we have used the while loop, and on the right side, we have the code with for loop. The logic behind the for loop is similar to the while loop, and the only difference is the way the syntax is written. We can see that the syntax is concise as compared to the while or do while loops, and this syntax is new and we have not used it earlier in the while loop and do while loop. So a for loop has three parts. The first is initialization, then we have condition, and the third one is iteration. Now, the initialization can be any expression that is executed only once before the loop starts. In our case, it is the value of n as 1 which we have defined. We basically give our variable a value here. The second part is the condition n equals to less than 10, which gets evaluated and checked every time at the start of each iteration. If the condition evaluates to true, only then the code block within the loop is executed, otherwise the loop breaks. And the third part is iteration, that is increment of the variable, which can be any expression that gets executed every time. This is responsible for loop control and has been added to the iteration part of the for loop. This remaining line of the code remains within the curly braces for the for loop. So, this is how we can write the same code used to print the first 10 even numbers using a for loop. Note that for loop is a more concise way of writing code. Now, coming to the last type of loop, that is for each loop. Let's discuss this one also. It is a special loop that is created only for arrays. Let's have a look at the syntax of for each loop to understand it better. The syntax is for each, the name of the array, as, followed by the variable name. The loop runs as many times as the number of elements present in the array. So, if the array has 10 elements, it will run 10 times. And if it has 20 elements, it will run 20 times. And in each iteration, it picks up one element of the array and assigns it to the variable for us to use. Let's look at an example in which we have used the for each loop. Here, we have an array that contains 5 different numbers. This means that the loop will run for 5 times and there is no need to use an additional loop control variable. The array is stored in a variable $arr. Then, we have a for each loop followed by the iteration. For each iteration, the different values of the array will be assigned to the variable num, which will be printed by this statement. And once all the numbers are printed, the loop will terminate itself. So that was all about various loops in PHP. In the next topic, we will continue to learn more about for each loop along with arrays. But up next is a quiz, so all the best.